In a land far, far away, there was a war between the C# programmers and the rest of the programming world. The C# programmers were a fierce group of warriors, well-versed in the art of object-oriented programming, but they had grown arrogant and had declared war on all other programming languages. The JavaScript programmers and Python programmers knew they had to band together to fight the common enemy. They were a motley crew, with the JavaScript programmers typing frantically on their keyboards, and the Python programmers slithering around the battlefield, striking quickly and silently. At first, the two groups had trouble communicating. The JavaScript programmers kept asking the Python programmers for semicolons, and the Python programmers kept hissing at the JavaScript programmers to use indentation. But eventually, they found common ground in their hatred for the C# programmers. The battle was intense, with lines of code flying through the air like arrows and bugs scurrying across the battlefield like rats. The C# programmers were formidable opponents, but the JavaScript and Python programmers had a few tricks up their sleeves. The JavaScript programmers used their skills in asynchronous programming to confuse the C# warriors. They would launch a barrage of code snippets, each one executing at a slightly different time, causing the C# programmers to become disoriented and confused. Meanwhile, the Python programmers used their stealthy skills to sneak up behind the C# warriors and deliver swift and deadly blows. They would strike with their razor-sharp fangs, injecting just the right amount of Pythonic code to bring the C# programmers to their knees. One C# programmer cried out in frustration, "Why is your code so much more readable?" The Python programmer replied with a grin, "That's because we follow the PEP 8 style guide." The other Python programmers chuckled at the inside joke, while the defeated C# programmer could only mutter, "I should have learned Python instead." As the battle raged on, the JavaScript and Python programmers began to grow tired. They knew they had to come up with a final, decisive blow to defeat the C# programmers once and for all. And then, in a moment of inspiration, one of the Python programmers had an idea. "What if we just write a script that deletes all of their code?" he exclaimed. The JavaScript programmers looked at him skeptically. "That's crazy. It'll never work," they said. But the Python programmer was undeterred. He began typing furiously, his fingers moving across the keyboard with lightning speed. And then, with a final flourish, he hit the execute button. There was a moment of tense silence as the Python script ran, and then, suddenly, the C# programmers' computers started shutting down one by one. Their code was disappearing before their very eyes. The JavaScript and Python programmers looked at each other in amazement. They had done it. They had defeated the C# programmers. And then, as they were celebrating their victory, a lone C++ programmer appeared on the horizon. The JavaScript and Python programmers looked at each other nervously. They had never fought against a C++ programmer before. "We can take him," the Python programmer said confidently. And so, the three programmers charged towards each other, ready for another epic battle. But that's a story for another day.